let's start right at the beginning, which is where your memoir starts. As I said, if we had to take a distillation of your entire life up until this point, it would say that as a teenage girl, you are raped not once, but twice that you record in your memoir by your father. A child is born from that sexual assault. That child is Sheena. You later go to jail on an accusation that you killed this child who has been born, again stress, from the rape of a teenage girl, by your father.
Right. A minor, not just a teenager.
14 and 16.
Yes.
And as I say that out loud, I shudder even now to say it out loud. That is quite a life, right?
Yes.
Let's start with trying to understand how you felt about the fact that your mother, while wanting to give you support, while sending you away from the house when she discovers you tell her that this is what's happened, eventually goes back to the same man, eventually does not protect you in the way that you would have hoped. What did that do to you as a child?
See, as a child, I think my emotions were not very evolved as it is today. But today, my purpose of bringing all of this out and writing about it so candidly and so openly, like you said, it is almost very clinical. It is also very cold in a way.
Yeah.
Okay, because it's not easy to talk about it, even today.
Indrani Mukerjea, if I had to distill the essence of your extraordinary tale as told in your recently published memoirs in one line, it would be this. As a child, as a teenager, you are raped by your father, your stepfather in fact, and the child born from that sexual assault is somebody you are later accused of killing. When I say this out loud, it sounds so surreal, macabre, disturbing when your own life is played back to you in this one sentence. Are you able to process that this is your life?
I've lived this life, Barkha, and I think the period of processing what has happened in my life is now over. And I have accepted what has happened. And there are several memories which are still there and which are very disturbing for me. It could be disturbing for anybody. It is disturbing. But then, however, I have learned to deal with my emotions. I think I have learned to calm them now. And I am moving forward in my life with the view that people make mistakes in life. And mistakes have been made by a lot of people, which has affected my life in a very traumatic manner. I have had to face the trauma, the shame of other people's actions. So I was vilified because of what other people had to do. But I have learned to live with it and accept that people do things, they justify things in their own heads very often, even if it is wrong. And I think I have to live my life the way I want to, and I have learned to survive. And I believe in just looking at the positives in life. In fact, and I believe in the goodness of human beings also. There is always, in every human being, everybody has a darker side and everybody has a good side. Some people have a more darker side. Some people have more humane side, let's say. But I think at the end of the day, because I have forgiven all the people who have hurt me, I've made peace with myself. And I look forward in life to a journey which I think is going to be very fulfilling and enriching for myself. That is very important.
Now, your memoir, it is almost clinically told in the sense that it's almost as if you have taken a step back from your own life and decided to third eye your life. And before we get to what you'll do next, what you're planning, legally, all of that, I want to actually take you back to the beginning, which is where your book starts.
Right.
And you talk about being a teenage girl who's sexually assaulted, raped by her father. If you want to be technical, I should say stepfather.
Actually, that's incorrect. But anyway. Yeah.
But go ahead. Which part is incorrect?
The stepfather bit is not really correct.
Why was it reported like that everywhere?
Oh, well, that is what really my book is about, because
that's what I was confused, because I kept looking in the book.
No,
in the book you call him your father, but in all the media reports he's described as your stepfather.
So, well, that is what media is all about, and people just pick up bits and bobs from wherever they hear. But anyway. Yeah,
so I'm glad you've corrected me, because when I was researching for this conversation, I was actually confused, because the book says, effectively, my father raped me.
Yeah.
And every single newspaper article calls that man your stepfather.
Yeah.
You're saying he was your own biological father.
That is my understanding. Yes.
What do you mean that is my understanding?
No, that is what I have always known. So it was only after I went to prison, this entire stepfather thing came out. And I don't know where it popped up from, but I suppose that is what it is. Because people came out, and people who didn't know me, people who knew me came out and gave a whole bunch of stories, and there was a frenzy, all over. The day I was arrested, people who I have never met in my life came out and gave interviews like they were my best buddies, and now suddenly they decided this is this bad woman who we must talk about because we know all her dirty secrets and all her dark secrets, and I've never even met a lot of people.
So let's, with that correction,
Yeah.
let's start right at the beginning, which is where your memoir starts. As I said, if we had to take a distillation of your entire life up until this point, it would say that as a teenage girl, you are raped not once, but twice that you record in your memoir by your father. A child is born from that sexual assault. That child is Sheena. You later go to jail on an accusation that you killed this child who has been born, again stress, from the rape of a teenage girl, by your father.
Right. A minor, not just a teenager.
14 and 16.
Yes.
And as I say that out loud, I shudder even now to say it out loud. That is quite a life, right?
Yes.
Let's start with trying to understand how you felt about the fact that your mother, while wanting to give you support, while sending you away from the house when she discovers you tell her that this is what's happened, eventually goes back to the same man. Eventually does not protect you in the way that you would have hoped. What did that do to you as a child?
See, as a child, I think my emotions were not very evolved as it is today. But today, my purpose of bringing all of this out and writing about it so candidly and so openly, like you said, it is almost very clinical. It is also very cold in a way, because it's not easy to talk about it, even today. But the reason I've chosen to do that is because not just back then, even despite having a lot of legal provisions for protection of child abuse, I don't think families really come out with, even when they know there is child abuse going on, within closed doors, I don't think adults, whether it's parents, uncles, aunts, they really are very outgoing or brave enough to report it, because there is a whole act now, and I've learned about all this when I was in prison, obviously. So I think it is very important for people to have the courage to come on and.
Did you feel betrayed by your mother?
At that point, yes. But
Later?
as they aged, no, that is where I'm coming to. As they aged, and when I realized that they needed me, I think I did not want to be like them. Because when I needed my mother, she was not around. But when they reached out to me, I felt that it was important for me not to be at least a good human being, which is why I went out of my way to provide whatever support I could give them, whether it is financial, whether it is emotional. It was not easy. That makeup was not easy. But then as human beings, you have to do what you have to do. It is something as, I would, like for example, Vidhi went out and wrote a book about me. Of course, she did that.
Let me just explain to the audience who Vidhi is.
Yeah.
Vidhi is your daughter.
Right.
And Vidhi writes a book called The Devil's Daughter.
Yes.
Vidhi is asked by some family members of Peter Mukerjea, your former husband, to call you Lucy, which is shorthand for Lucifer, which is the devil.
Right.
So she writes a book called The Devil's Daughter. This is your own daughter.
Right. So she did that, obviously, with a lot of, I think there was a lot of instigation behind that. I think her book was a bit different. But at the same time, the moment she reached out to me, and she reached out to me with incidents that happened, which I have elaborated in the book. I think if you've read the...
I read the whole book.
Yeah, so you know what happened while I was away in prison. You know what happened to her. So she went through something very similar. So the moment she reached out to me, I did not think twice, and I gave her the support that I needed to give her as a mother, because she needed that emotional support. So that is what I believe that mothers need to be.
And we'll get to that, because you're a mother who was accused of basically murdering her daughter.
Right.
But you brought that daughter up, telling the world, except for a chosen few, that daughter was your sister.
Yes.
I mean, you see how convoluted this sounds even as I tell the story. In the book, you explain why this was so. You say that because Sheena was born from rape, your mother suggested that your mother and your father...
That is in my charge sheet as well.
I understand. But, to read it as a narrative in one go is a very different impact. I do have to say that. Why did you feel the need to hide from the world? Two things. And I don't mean when you were young. I mean later.
Yeah.
One, that you had been sexually assaulted by your father. And two, that the girl you called your sibling was actually your daughter.
Okay, let me answer that. Firstly, I never hid those details from people who were close to me.
When did Sheena find out?
Sheena got to know about it, I think, when she was much older, obviously. Sheena knew about it, but I think she was already an adult by then. So it was never hidden from Sanjeev. It was never hidden from Peter. So I think people who matter to me, I had never felt the need to hide it from them.
These were the two men you married and divorced.
Yeah, of course. I think they are important to me. Vidhi was a child, so it was not important at that. Not important, I would have told her at the appropriate time. But I think these are things which are very disturbing, as you said yourself. So you get a shudder every time you think about it. And people tend to forget that all these things happened when I was a minor, and I was not in control of circumstances and situations. Decisions were taken for me. I was neither financially or economically sound to take those decisions. I couldn't pick up Sheena and just say, okay, I have 5,000 rupees in my account. I was still a student. I couldn't do that. That was one. And secondly, I think because their life was so settled, as on record they were, my parents' kids, and that is how it remained, because that is what they also chose. So decisions are not just taken by one person. So it is not about me hiding. It is not about hiding. It is, for example, when Sheena worked with Reliance, and this came out in court. So there were so many, rumors about, how grieved she was about the fact that I was kind of not on record, her mother, or I chose. These are rumors. Sheena never said any of it to anybody. I had a perfectly fine relationship with Sheena as long as she stayed with me.
How did she find out? How did she find out that she was your daughter?
I will come to that. Let me just complete this part. So when this is only in court, I realized all of this, that when she had filled up the Reliance forms in, for family. So she was 23 years old then. She had voluntarily filled up as a child of, Upendra Kumar Bora and Durgarani Bora, and she nominated my mother to be just, they have this whole insurance thing and all of that. So, and the HR head of Reliance actually came and deposed in court, and he said that she had at no point ever told us that Indrani Mukerjea is a mother, because this was a question.
But did she know at that stage?
Yeah, of course.
She knew.
Yeah. She knew by the time she was.
Did you tell 15, her, or did someone else tell her?
No, I know that by the time she was about 14, one of my cousins had spoken to her.
But did she know that you had been raped?
No, at that point, no, but she got to know about it much later from one of my uncles. So this was later, I think just before she disappeared. So this was around 2011, which is when she touched base with me. And this is, though it's not exactly mentioned in an email, there is an email that I had received and where she kind of says that I am really sorry. I found out now that what really happened, I got to know, and I'm really, really sorry for not having been in touch with you. And that is when she reconnected, because she had gone to Guwahati, and one of our family people had spoken to her and said that this is what actually happened. And obviously she was very sad about it, very, very sad. And she had spoken about this to Rahul. I'm aware of it.
Rahul is Peter Mukerjea's son and the man she is dating.
She's dating, correct. So she did speak to him, because she very categorically told me about this when she met me after that, or even on phone calls, that I've shared this with Rahul. And but all these things, never really came out. Even the Mukerjea family chose not to talk about this because it didn't work in, I suppose, their favor. So
now you have said,
yeah,
and there's a lot to ask, but let's start with your claim that your daughter, who you are accused of killing, is actually alive.
I haven't claimed. There are people who have who say they have met,
or seen her.
Met.
Oh, met. Okay.
See, the seeing her is very different from meeting. Okay, so it is not my claim. Let me just correct that, because I've seen also reports Indrani Mukerjea claim. So it is not my claim, because I will claim it only when I personally meet her.
Right.
So there are 2-3 people who have said they have met. Again, I'm correcting it. And somebody has gone to the extent of taking a video of that, which was submitted in court, along with an affidavit of that lady, who is a very renowned lawyer in India. So And post that, the Honorable Court had, because we had applied for a CCTV footage from the airport, which is now in a sealed envelope in the court, which will be used at the right
Why
time.
would she be in hiding? She's your daughter.
So that is what really baffles me, honestly, because I cannot for the life of me figure out that despite knowing that I have been in prison for 6.5 years and I've gone through a lot of grief in the process, why would she choose to really not come out in the open? However, Barkha, I must also add to it, which I think in the previous interview with you, Sana had already explained. And now it has come on record, because in the previous interview, Rahul Mukherjee was had still not deposed. Now it has come on record that there were, a series of text messages which were exchanged in between Rahul Mukherjee and Sheena in the month of September 2012, which is well after
The body, the police says they found the body.
Yeah, so after the alleged, murder, that has come on record, which is why I believe that the Honorable Court was very quick in allowing the application to retrieve the CCTV footage. Because immediately there was absolutely no kind of... and the moment the Honorable Judge saw the footage on her phone, I don't know if it's a standard procedure or what it is, I don't know, but they said, no, we cannot.
But you do know that Rakesh Maria, the top cop whom you also write about in your book, he said at one point to the press that your former husband, not Peter but Sanjeev, had actually confessed to his role in this murder.
He said a lot of things, so there must
He being Rakesh Maria?
Yeah, Rakesh Maria said a lot of things, but there must also be a reason why, I think the authorities felt that he was not capable of continuing with the investigation. There must be a reason, which is why he was removed from the investigation. That is what I feel. And it also appears that, which I have mentioned in my book, that what he has written in his book is contradicts even my charge sheet. So, Barkha, each of these Rakesh Maria story or my charge sheet, these are all speculative theories and allegations. So I have learned one thing in life now after spending so much time, that everything works, and I only believe in evidence.
Yeah.
So there is, again, the entire evidence is just so ridiculous.
So let me say this. Obviously, the court will determine guilt and innocence. As a journalist, I can only ask the questions.
Yeah.
What leaps out in the book is how you actually repeat all the terrible things that were said about you. You do a chronicle.
Yes.
You quote Tavleen Singh, for example, saying that she thought you were one of the coldest, right?
Cruelest human beings
on the planet. One of the cruelest human beings on the planet.
And she never really justifies why I am the cruelest human being. And Tavleen Singh has perhaps just met me once in her entire life at a friend's dinner. I've never even had a conversation with her. She doesn't know me.
But what really comes out in the book is a kind of, tell me if I'm using the right word, a defiance, right? I find the narrative filled with defiance against other people's judgments of you, whether it comes to personal morality, which you feel you've been judged with, the affairs you had, the relationships you had, the men you married and divorced, whether it comes to your ambition, which is something you say the charge sheet talks about, or whether it comes to a lot of people judging you because they thought you were a terrible mother. Right? Let's start with the last.
Yeah.
Now, of course, in general, women are always judged, but we're not talking about a normal circumstance here. We're talking about 2 of your 3 children being brought up by your parents.
Right.
One of them having raped you, and therefore that girl having been born Sheena. We're talking about your son also making allegations against you, saying you wanted to kill him and so on. We're talking about a son who had substance abuse issues, but didn't actually live with you, lived with one of your colleagues separately. Sheena also lives separately from you. A lot of people might ask, and the book didn't fully explain that, I thought, so I'm asking you. Even when they discover that they're your children and not your siblings, they don't actually live with you. They live separately. Why is that?
Actually, these were choices which were made by them as adults.
Yeah.
So people decide to live wherever they want to live. And I was a working woman. I used to work 20 hours a day. So if, let's say, Mikhail chose to live in Delhi, he was studying here. He was doing his hospitality management in Delhi. That is where he chose to live. And so there was no question of him coming and living in Bombay, right? So similarly, for example, Vidhi studied in the UK. So she lived in the UK.
Yeah.
And we've all done that. I think it is not very uncommon for children to really go and live in different places where they pursue their education or their careers. So they don't really have to go to a
No, I understand that. I'm just
Yeah.
saying these kids have just re-entered your life as your kids.
Yeah, but Sheena lived with me for a long time. So, I mean, during her entire phase of doing her university in Bombay, she was very much there. And the only reason she had to stay also at a place in Colaba was because it was very close to her university, to St. Xavier's. That was what she lived with.
So when everybody looked at you and said, what a terrible mother,
Yeah.
they called you cruel, they called you cold, they called you a killer.
Yeah.
And they obviously said there can be no greater crime than a woman
Yeah.
who kills her own child.
And I agree. As far as I think, there definitely cannot be a greater crime than filicide. Or, I mean, I think hurting any human being. You know, that goes even for animals. This world is full of, I am not a vegetarian, but I'm saying that. So I think taking a life is really not acceptable. You know, that is not what we should be doing at any point in life, even for self-defense. So that is a story apart. But I do not believe that I was necessarily, people completely forgot about my case. I don't think the discussions were around the case. The discussions became more about whether I was a good mother or a bad mother, whether I raised my kids well. I, as a woman, you know, it is my choice how I wish to raise my children. I don't tell other people how they should raise their kids. But I realized one thing, that a lot of people, I think, have been very obsessed with me their entire life. And this is
Why do you think that is?
I will tell you this. And because there is this lady, and I think you have read it in the book, so I shall not give out the name, let the readers read it. So she's even gone on record in a CBI statement. When the CBI asked her, she's from the television industry, at least she was, now she's long past and gone, but she was asked which was the first organization you worked for. And she said, I can't remember. But she seemed to have remembered a message apparently that I sent to her in 2002. I don't remember sending her any message because, but anyway, maybe I have. So that is when I realized, I said, I have never gone out with this woman anywhere. She worked in the same company as Peter. And I think she came to my wedding. I think she did, yeah. And that was out of the many guests that we invited. And that was the only thing that I ever had with her. But when I came out of prison, what I saw was, obviously, I could tell that she was interviewing the same day with probably hundreds of channels because she was in the same attire. And I think it was her moment in the sun. And she kept giving interviews after interviews. Towards the end, she was panting. She was out of breath. So that is when I was thinking, I said, why is this woman talking so much about me when she knows she doesn't even know me? She's not a mother also.
But think of it, it's this crazy story, right? Now,
Yeah.
now I'm looking at it as a journalist, right?
Yeah.
There
No, but
is-
she pretended she knew me so well.
Okay, so
That
she was
is what-
she was saying it from a place of knowledge. But if you think
Yeah.
about it, these media tycoons,
when she had no knowledge of me, right?
media tycoons both end up in jail, husband, wife, get
Yeah.
divorced, they're accused of killing your daughter. I mean, that's why they say that what happens in real life is so much more dramatic than what happens in fiction. But let's come back to how you have approached all of this. It's very intriguing because your book is very graphic. Your book is very detailed. Like I said, you also reiterate all the insults that are used to describe you, including Shobha Day writing about your quickie divorce and so on.
Which is why I said sometimes quickies are good, because I had a very good lawyer, Edith Day, who's from Mahesh Jethmalani's chamber, and she managed to get a quickie divorce for me. So,
Yeah, but you're also very graphic about your relationships.
Yeah.
There are sexual details in the
Yeah.
book. You talk about who you were attracted to, who you weren't, who you had to fake it with. And you talk quite graphically about Peter Mukerjea in the very beginning of your relationship,
Yeah.
commenting on the size of your breasts.
Yeah.
Now, this is not something I would typically ask in an interview, but
Yes.
it's in there in your
Yes.
book.
Yeah.
And I think it's very important to understand. And you retort back and you comment on the size of his penis.
Yeah.
That's your hit back.
Yeah.
The reason I bring this up is to understand why you felt the need to give your reader this level of detail.
Okay. Now, there was a comment you had made just a little while ago.
Defiance.
The defiance, yes. So this book, see, for 6 years and 8 months, I was obviously not in a position to speak. I had the choice to convey whatever I needed to convey through my lawyers or through other people. But I chose not to do that because I think it has to come from the horse's mouth. It was very important to do that. Right? So I waited for the right time and for my time. There is always a time to speak. So once I came out of prison, because I wrote this entire book in prison, and it is all handwritten notes. It is, the entire manuscript is handwritten. So I spent a lot of kind of my canteen, because we had a limit of $4,000 every month that we could get from outside. So I would just buy paper and I'd buy notebooks and pens and whiteners. So I wrote it in the traditional ink to paper kind of way. So I actually wrote a book. And so for me, it was like eat ka jawab kalam se. It is that. So for me, this book is a response. It is not a reaction. If it was a reaction, I would have reacted a long time ago. Neither is it a defiance. It is a response. And for me, it is very important. People went out and said a lot of things about me, including members of the Mukherjee family who went around giving interviews about me. And I was told, and I have seen several interviews. So it was, I think, the family initially who went around talking about things. That is where the media went into a frenzy, right? So, I mean, I'm not saying what happened was right or wrong, or it's their choice. But it is my time. This is my way of dealing with the grief that I went through. At one point, I went through all sorts of emotions. I was enraged, I was sad, I was grieving. So I went through all these things. Then I made peace with myself. So I do not think that I have... I'm also not the kind of person who would, because again, I don't want to name, but I have had partners, and I would not say this of Sanjeev because he is not like that. But men can get very graphic also about not just about, what their partner's body looks like, also about women they look at, the size of whatever their bodies and parts of their bodies are, even when they're watching, when they're looking, even a woman, they don't know. So I think it is very important. So it is just a message out, it is not just people who I mentioned. Okay, it is also about just the fact that the way men don't like being described in detail, so you better not comment about the size of, women's ...
Yeah.
Okay, so it is very incorrect. And why I think people make a huge, this thing about hue and cry about intimate, the intimate details of things. But today, if you see, whether you watch, I think it's a bit of double standards.
You're saying there's hypocrisy around the sex
There is hypocrisy around it. It is my life. I will choose. It's my book. I will choose to write as much. I mean, am I really ashamed to say that I had sex with my husband? Absolutely not. I am not ashamed. And if anybody is going to judge me for it, it's their problem, not mine. Mm-hmm. And we have, movies all over the world which are where they...
Yeah, I'm only trying to understand why, was it defiance that made you put that story in the book?
No, it is not defiance. It is who I am. It is as simple.
No, I don't mean about sex, but this particular exchange where the size of your breast is commented on by a man you've just started seeing.
Yeah, it was my first
night with him.
So he had first night with him, and he had no business to comment on my body. So why should
you commented on his?
Yeah, I commented on his. So
what is the worst thing that you've heard? Okay, the worst thing is obviously you've been called a murderer. After that, what is the worst thing you've heard?
There are several things, So now, I almost find it funny and I can laugh about it now. Laugh about all the things that were said about me, right from... people have said this is like weird, that, and again, I heard it's come out from the family that I do black magic, and I wish I could do black magic. I wouldn't have stayed in prison for 6 years, 8 months. I'm sure I would have been out a long time ago. Mm-hmm. So, but there were all sorts of things.
People were also writing about the color of your hair.
Yeah. Oh, that is the sensational topic.
Because everybody remembered those very dramatic images when you would do your court appearances and your hair was all grey. Yeah. And then there was a lot of comment on, why you felt the need to dye it. I mean, I'm just bringing this up because this is the level of detail.
I am very glad you're bringing it.
Because I remember all the commentary. Yeah. On why the hair dye is, the hair dye at the center of it. Is there a story there? Is there a story in the going grey and then coming back to dyeing your hair?
Okay, I'll just, cut short. So I think, and the funny part is all these anchors who commented on it, they are all in their 50s and
You think they're all dyeing their hair?
No, they are evergreen. You see people in their 70s, people in their 50s and 60s, just do not have a single grey hair except for Indrani Mukerjea. Mm-hmm. And I think I should do a L'Oreal campaign, really. Mm-hmm. So I should. But anyway, so I started colouring my hair, I think from the age of perhaps 25. You want to colour different colours, and then, over a period of time, which I am not ashamed to say, I don't pretend to have jet black hair at the age in my 50s. I don't pretend to have. I did not even have jet black hair or, whatever, the brown streaks of hair even when I was in my 30s. Mm-hmm. So I colored my hair. So when I went into prison, of course, hair color is available. There's mehndi there. There's, prison is not, it's just, that's an under trial prison. And it is like a holding center, right? There is an allegation. Nobody's convicted there. It's just an allegation, and you are just held back there so that you cannot run away, basically. You cannot run away from justice. Till there is a point where they realize that maybe the case is weak, and that is when you start getting bails and things like that. So there was a lot of people who continue to tell me that, listen, I think you just feel good about yourself. So initially, coloring my hair was not my priority.
Obviously.
I was dealing with, because at that point in time, I genuinely believed that Sheena was not alive. Something happened to her. So what people don't realize, that there is a mother grieving inside for the loss of a child. The last thing that I wanted to do was go to the canteen and buy hair color. That was or go and buy kajal. So obviously that was the biggest grief that I was going through. And at that point, I didn't even know what was going on with the outside, with all the things that were said about me, because the prison authorities also made sure that all that news did not come to me. If it came on television, they kind of changed the channels, or they kind of cut out the pieces from the article so that I was not disturbed. Because they were the ones who saw me actually crying and grieving. It was not the outside world. The outside world just was, giving a lot of fluff. Even the people who didn't know me, right? So, but once I started reading the charge sheet, and once I realized that, hang on, that this is somehow not adding up, I started realizing that no, there's something very wrong, and there is a possibility that this girl is alive. That is when, obviously, I felt very strongly about, kind of pulling myself back together.
Yeah.
And I said that to pull myself back together, I need to feel good. And whether you color your hair, whether you wear kajal, as much as people like to believe, particularly men like to believe you do all of that to lure them, I think women most of the time do it for themselves. And I did it for myself.
You mentioned that the news that Sheena might be out there somewhere made you re-engage with maybe parts of yourself that you had left behind.
I wanted to be myself again, to fight back.
One thing we haven't spoken about is the motive that was ascribed to you for killing your daughter, right? And the motive was that she was seeing the son of Peter Mukerjea, whom you were married to. So that made them sort of step siblings, and you felt that as parents,
ridiculous.
That was one motive.
Yeah.
Then there were suggestions of money and property being at the heart of this dispute. There was allusions, as you say in the book, to a 900 crores sort of stash that was the driving motive. Today, if you're asked, did you approve of that relationship between Sheena and Peter Mukerjea's son? Because that was the reason I ask you, is because it was suggested that was one of the motives for murder.
It was not suggested. It was
said.
Peter Mukerjea and his family. I'm sorry. That was what was spread out. So I will just very quickly tell you my only concern. Okay, I never disapproved of that relationship. My only concern was that I wanted Sheena to finish her education, and I wanted Rahul to settle down. Because I know Sheena as my daughter. Sheena liked a good life. And as a mother, also, I wanted the best for her. It was just that. And the rest of it I have written in the book. So it was not about, they were living together for 3 years. So why would I one fine day just decide that no, I don't think they should be together. So it was not a secret. We all knew where they lived. In fact,
I think one of the things you said was, if I disapproved of the relationship, I would kill the boy, not why would I kill the daughter.
Why would I do that? And I got the place. I made sure she had, or even though we were not in touch, I made sure she had all the comfort. She had the air conditioning. She had the all the whatever.
Creature comforts.
Comforts, because I knew Rahul couldn't provide that to her. I also knew that she had just started a job. So I didn't want her to, I want her to have some savings. So I provided her all the creature comforts during that period while she was living with Rahul and for 3 years. So it is, why would I one fine day decide, no, I don't kind of approve. She's an adult and I am a very kind of open-minded person. I believe that everybody should be allowed to live their lives. I have led a very unconventional life. So, and she's had boyfriends before that. She's never had a reason to hide it from me. So it's not something that I would ever decide for her. I can't.
The book starts with, or makes a reference to the men who have been in your life whom you felt betrayed by. It starts with your father and it goes through, some of the men you've been with. But there were also men who did exceptionally nice things for you. You talk about your first partner, Siddharth, right? Who steps up to claim parenthood over Sheena, even though he's not the biological father. Now, it's so confusing because if you try and research the Indrani Mukerjea case, you will see a statement from him at one point claiming to be the biological father when he was not. He just provided that cover so that people won't.
Yeah, but I don't think he said anyway that he's the biological father. I don't think so.
Oh, maybe the media described him to me.
I don't think he said it.
Who do you feel the most betrayed by?
I feel very betrayed by Peter.
Because?
Because I spent 21 years with him. My commitment to him, as far as which I have written in my book, leaving Siddharth was, I never was married. It was a relationship, right? So it was a different thing altogether. So even though he wanted to marry me, I never did. Also, I don't think Sanjeev ever let me down. It would be very incorrect to say. He had habits which were not I was not happy about. But I gave my 100% not just to Peter, but also to his family. I was very, very committed to that family. So I felt very, very betrayed. Particularly, I think, he was just my fair weather husband and I had fair weather in-laws. And that really hurt me a lot. That was very difficult.
Why did you forgive your father? Because you haven't said these words, I forgive my father, but you make references in your memoir to the fact that you sent your parents on a holiday with Sheena and Mikhail.
I was the biggest healer.
But he raped you.
But he also aged. He was an old man who became sick. And they were financially in a position where they needed support. So it was, I could have been totally inhuman and I could have said, okay, just let them die. Let him die a dog's death. I could have done that. But the actual forgiveness happened when I actually went to do his shraddh. I took court permission and that
You were in jail when he died?
Yes, I was in jail and that was the time I really felt and I cried a lot. And it kind of made me feel that, yes, that was the time the actual forgiveness happened. Up until then, it was not forgiveness, but I did not want bad karma. Because I still believe, no matter what, at least in our Hindu mythology, we do believe parents ko Bhagwan ke darja dete hain. That's the thing. No, even if they are wrong. And which is what, as a child, I couldn't deal with it. But as an adult, my approach to this entire thing was very different. That despite all the challenges in life that I faced, I still stood my ground and I still remained a strong person and very, very unbroken, right? Which is why
Which is what the book is called.
Yeah, which is why it's called. And there must be something also good, a lot of good things that I must have done in life, which is why I'm sitting here today with you.
Let's talk a little bit about the professional aspect to your life, right? You have come from a place of unapologetic ambition. You are self-made. You come to Calcutta with 5,000 rupees in your pocket. You start working with Diners Club and so on. And you build your way to starting a company, which is a headhunting firm, a recruitment firm. Eventually, you and Peter start a media network. And like many things that collapse in your life, that collapses too. One of the things that you do is write a letter at some point to Arun Jaitley to talk about how the former Home and Finance Minister's son, there was a quid pro quo with him and money changed hands. Now, the cynics would say that Indrani Mukerjea was trying to curry favor with the powers that be, hoping perhaps that she'd get a break in the case, in the charges that she was facing. Because why would she take so many years to let this cat out of the bag? What would you say to that?
I have already actually written in the book about it. So if I tell you everything now...
Tell us just a little bit and not the whole story.
No, I will not tell anything about it because I think that is... Not because it is sensitive, but I have written about it already. And just to correct it, that charge sheet which was filed in 2015. My charge sheet for...
You're saying that it came after your...
Yeah, so it happened well before all of this was there. And that is the charge sheet which is fallen apart, which has got nothing to do, it was filed long ago. So these are, speculations, and we live in a free country. Even though I'm not an Indian citizen, at least I think we live in a free country. So where we are allowed to...
You're a British citizen.
Yeah,
that's something I discovered from the book. I actually didn't know that.
So, yes, I think we are allowed to voice our opinions. People can say and think whatever they want to think. It is their opinion, their speculation. And I do realize that people still, have their opinions on big issues and small issues. And
there's a lot of stories. Let's leave that for the book. In the end, let's talk a little bit about going into prison. You go as a sort of high-profile media tycoon into prison and learn a different part of life, right? You haven't always come from wealth, so you know that life, but you always had a comfortable life, and now you're in prison.
Very comfortable life.
And now you're in jail. Now you're in jail, and you're seeing all of these other women who are under trials. How does prison change you?
I think it's a very humbling experience. At least for me, it was a very humbling experience. So I think, look at life through a different lens. You understand, because I only interacted with women in prison. So you understand also that no matter which strata of society you come from, I think women are judged all the time. And for the same acts, men are judged much, much lesser. And which is what is the essence of my book.
Yeah.
That's the essence. So I think, but women also, what I have realized, that I think women are overall also much stronger than men. That is the other thing I have also realized. And they know how to survive. Women are overall, I think, also survivors. And which is why we see so many rape survivors. And they have come out, acid attack survivors, and they have rebuilt lives, and they continue to...
If there was something you could do differently, what would it have been in your life?
I think that's a very, very difficult question to answer, and I really have never thought about it. Because I think life is always full of surprises. And again, I continue to say that, change is the only constant in life.
But you know how, like you said in the beginning, we're all flawed to differing degrees.
Yeah.
And there's some things we look back and we say, I wish I hadn't done that.
I wish I had never met Peter, actually. That is the only thing I always feel, that I think my life would have been very, very different had I don't think I would have gone to prison if I wouldn't have met Peter. that is one thing I always feel.
You got exposed to all of these women in prison.
Yeah.
And now you have to look ahead at the rest of your life. One, you believe your daughter is out there somewhere. Are you trying to find her independently? Yes. What are you doing to find her?
Yes, so that I cannot really disclose at
but
this
you're working
point.
on trying to...
Absolutely, absolutely, but I cannot talk about it.
Because it's sub judice.
It is sub judice, and we have already submitted the phone video footage, and the CCTV footage is there, and we are doing our own, from my own side, I am doing whatever possible inquiries that I can. I am going out, so I don't have to again talk about it in the public domain, because it is not necessary, and at the right time, if I have any information which is of relevance, I will submit it in court.
Okay.
I do not owe an explanation to anyone else.
Fair enough. Yeah. And the court proceedings will take their own course.
Yeah, absolutely.
I know that you have decided to work with under trials, women in particular. Yes. So speak to that.
Yes, so what I spoke about it a little bit, I think, in my last interview with you, but it was just, I think my previous interview with you was just after I came out of prison. So in this 1 year, what I have managed to put together is I have connected with this NGO called Insaniyat, which is Worli based, and is it's an initiative by a young gentleman called Arjun Meghe, who is a political party worker, and he's been engaged in women empowerment for a very long time. He's a really, really nice boy, and he's done a lot of work. So he's been very kind enough to offer the infrastructure and the help that is required, so that I could engage and help out with vocational training of different sorts, whether it is weaving or candle making, or making of bags, or computer training for people who are a little bit more literate. And this is not just for women prisoners who have come out on bail or who have been acquitted, but also for women whose male members are in prison, and they are they have the responsibility to take care of their families. My aim is, we've kind of charted out a plan, and the aim is to try and empower at least 400 such women in 12 months. That is the aim. So every month we want to take up about 30-40 women.
And that's great if these women can get the help and support they need.
Yes.
I have two questions in the end. Right now you're hoping, obviously, that the court will exonerate you. You're out on bail. If you are not found innocent, if you have to go back to jail, are you mentally prepared for that possibility as well?
I will take each day as it comes. So at this point in time, the kind of evidence that has come on record, because the first thing in a murder case is there has to be very sound forensic reports. The forensics have fallen apart, because the DNA expert has already come and said that, he changed the data in his own handwriting, and then there was a post-mortem report which said, so there is no DNA report, technically. It's fudged. Then the second thing that happened is the post-mortem report, the doctor who conducted the post-mortem of a skeleton,
found in
Raigarh, said he had, and that's in the post-mortem report, no brain matter. So he explained the process, saying that I took a circular saw and made a circular cut. I cut open the skull, and then I checked, there was no brain matter. So I opened the skull cap, and the prosecution came and produced an intact full skull. So the day that happened, which was when I was still inside prison, So it is just not possible. So I personally do not believe, okay, a conviction is possible. It is not possible because the first basis of a conviction is the forensics. So when you cannot even prove a conviction, a murder, then the rest is all kind of, it's all meaningless.
Let's leave the last word of that to the court.
Yeah, of course. But and I also do believe, Barkha, that I, despite the fact that yes, I had to spend a lot of time in prison for a crime I believe that has never happened. Okay, I do believe in the justice system, and I do believe that ultimately truth and justice will prevail. And the truth has to come out. It will come out.
Okay, let me ask you this in the end.
Yeah.
There have been many words said about you, many things said about you. If you had to describe yourself, if you had to pick a word or 5 words to describe yourself, how do you see yourself?
Well, if I describe myself, I think I will be called very pompous after that. So
that's fine. That would be very mild compared to the things you've been called.
Yeah.
So go ahead. How would you describe yourself?
I think I am the one word that I can describe myself is unbroken, which is the title of my book. And I think I will continue to remain unbroken no matter what the world has to do. People may try to bend me, but they cannot break me. So that is my last message to everybody.
Indrani Mukerjea, thank you for talking to us. Your book, Unbroken, is now out in bookstores everywhere. And irrespective of what people think of you, which side they take, what impressions they carry, it is a compelling read of a very, very dramatic life. Thank you so much for talking to us.
Thank you. Did you like reading the book?
I did. And I was saying to you before the conversation started that I actually found it incredible that what I was reading was so disturbing, but it's also a very easy book to read. I finished it in one setting. I was familiar, of course, with being a journalist, with a lot of the context in it, but I think people will feel many things when they read this book. So I do think that people should read it. Thank you so much for talking to us.
Thank you, Barkha.
Thank you.
Thank you.